Hey Kev, let's follow this trail over here. This looks like there might be something waiting down there.
All right. Hey, wait a minute. Do you hear that?
Yeah, I thought it was just me. What the heck is that?
I don't know what that is. Whoa, do you smell that too?
That's unbelievable. Hey, look.
What the?
Hey, look, those branches are moving over there.
What the heck is that?
Holy cow, is that what I think it is? Look at that thing.
Oh my God.
It's a freaking Sasquatch. Welcome to the Bigfoot Terror in the Woods Sightings and Encounters podcast. I am your host, W.J. Sheehan. Hello, everybody out there, and once again, may I welcome you to our fantastic podcast. My name is W.J. Sheehan, author of the series Bigfoot Terror in the Woods Sightings and Encounters. All of these books, volumes 1 through 8, are available at Amazon in paperback and ebook format. And volumes 1 through 8, that's right, 8, are available in audio format at Audible, iTunes, and Amazon as well. And do partake of my latest book, How to Make Money, God's Universal Laws for Wealth and Prosperity. Folks, this book is a real eye-opener, and I guarantee you will benefit from reading and doing the things contained therein. And now, my brother and co-host, KJ Sheehan. Kev, how are you?
I'm good. How about you, Bill?
Marvelous. I told you we just came back from a Japanese hibachi restaurant.
Nice.
Celebrating
Did they make a choo-choo train out of the vegetables and steam? Or?
No, but they do a lot of hot rodding with their spatulas and stuff in front of you. And, there's a lot of steam and flame and goofing around.
How about throwing shrimp tails into the top of their hat? Did they do that?
No, they didn't. That would be a waste of a good shrimp.
No, shrimp tails.
Oh, shrimp tails. All right, well.
Yeah.
But they goof around. There's a lot of noise in there, a lot of horsing around.
Yeah.
They sing
Those
these
places are
goofy...
fun. Yeah, they're fun, and the food's not bad either.
No, it was good. It was very good tonight. Very good.
Cool.
And I said to Eddie, pre-COVID, the last time we were there was on a Father's Day. And the place was just freaking jammed. And this was like a year and a half, 2 years ago, before the COVID blast,
Yeah.
And but today it was much more casual. I'd say a third of the tables or the hibachis were booked. And real nice once in a while to go over there and do that,
Oh, yeah, I love those kinds of things. I don't do them enough, but I'll tell you what, everything here, like the restaurants here, are mobbed. Like you can't go out on the weekend unless you make a reservation well in advance, which it's great. I mean, it's good for the restaurants to be making a comeback.
Even McDonald's?
I haven't checked McDonald's. They're redefining fast food as slow food.
Oh my goodness!
Don't get me started on McDonald's, man. If you're a stockholder in McDonald's, sell your stock.
Yeah. I said to Paula the other day, when Mickey D's first came out, they were like the only game in town, and then Burger King.
Oh, but they were good. The food was good. It was predictable anywhere you were in the world, and the service was fast.
Yeah.
Now, Bill, like I went probably 2 months ago. I stopped in to get a iced tea, and I pull up to the drive-thru, and they're like, "Can you pull ahead into the parking space, and we'll bring it to you?" I'm like, "I ordered iced tea." And they're like, "Yeah, we don't have any iced tea."
Great. So what were you supposed to do when you pulled ahead?
Well, they pull you. They're so ready to not perform. They have these dedicated parking spaces that they put you in when they can't fulfill your order at the drive-thru.
Great.
I mean, that's a bad sign right there. But
yeah, really bad.
I digress.
Jeez.
But, Bill, we had a beautiful day today. The weather is fantastic. My deck project that I told you about out back behind the house here is finally looking like a deck. Oh, I was stressed out.
Do you still have to
over that.
walk? You still have to walk out the front door and go into the backyard?
No, I can walk out the back door, which is fantastic. Although I moved Martha's ramp, she's a 13-year-old Labrador, so she has a ramp. I moved it from the right side of the steps to the left side of the steps. Same steps. And she goes to it and she looks at me like, this isn't right. She wouldn't go down it. I slide it over to the right. Now, I know why they're good guide dogs. They're just creatures of habit.
Yeah. Yeah, they get used to what they know, and that's what they want to do,
No doubt about it. But beautiful day today. I don't know how your weather was, but it was like blue sky, puffy clouds. It was hot, but it was beautiful.
I can't stop laughing because you know what I'm thinking about?
McDonald's drive-thru.
Yeah, I'm wondering if McDonald's, after our little rant, would like to sponsor our show.
We're not the only ones giving the rant. I wouldn't give the rant if I thought it was like a one-off or something. Come on.
Yeah.
They used to be the standard of excellence. They really were. Anywhere in the world. I've been to McDonald's in China, and they were the standard of excellence. Now something happened there.
Yeah,
They lost the recipe.
I don't even think Bigfoot would eat over there.
No.
Oh, man. So what do you got, bro, for our cryptids in the news and other oddities?
Yeah, so we're going to be doing other oddities tonight, Bill. So this is something that a few of our listeners have written in about. And I had heard about them a little bit, but then I dug in after hearing from some of our listeners. So hats off to the folks writing in and giving us ideas and giving me ideas for the cryptids in the news and other oddities. We're talking about these isolated staircases that are being found out in forests, including the national parks, and globally. They're found, sometimes 50 miles from the nearest civilization, whether it's a wooden staircase that leads to nowhere in the forest, or a stone staircase that goes up like 2 stories and there's nothing at the end of it, or something in the middle. So very strange. Have you heard of these?
I'm shaking my head here like, what?
Yeah.
Freaking staircases?
In the middle of nowhere that basically lead to nothing.
That is freaking one of the most outlandish things I've ever heard.
Yeah, and apparently, some of these stories originate with the search and rescue folks. So they're going out to rescue somebody in the middle of nowhere, and then they come across these stairs. And apparently, at least, based on what's written out on the internet, especially at social media sites like Reddit, the search and rescue folks are like, yeah, it's just another day in the journey. We see it all the time, these staircases in the middle of the woods. And sometimes, again, 30, 40, 50 miles away from the nearest civilization.
Now, I got to say something here, Kev,
Sure.
and to our listeners. If anybody out there, now that Kev has broke the ice with these staircases to nowhere, if anybody out there is aware of anybody on any platform encouraging people to build such things, I'd like to know about it. How's that sound, Kev?
Yeah, by the way, I don't think anyone's building them. I think they're old and just weird. So there's different theories, right? So one theory is, there were stairs that led up to a structure. And, of course, the structure's gone, especially, if you see the stone and brick stairs. But I have to tell you, I do a lot of hiking around here in the southeast, And it's very common to come across stairs, but I'm talking about like 4 steps up,
Right.
out of stone and brick. But you also see remnants of the foundation and certainly remnants of the fireplace.
That's right.
I have never come across stairs with no remnants of anything else.
Yeah, and that's what's getting me, Kev, is that
Yeah.
if stairs are still remaining, the entire wooden structure could have rotted and decayed away 100 years ago, but there would be something, a rubble foundation, weeds, trees growing out of it. You'd see a square in the ground where a house once was situated. But just stairs?
Well, so
That's-
there's another more sinister idea behind the stairs.
All right, let's have it.
All right. Do you have an idea what these might be?
I'd have to give
It's
this
not
some
obvious.
thought. But
It's not obvious at all.
no, right now I'd have to say I have no idea.
That's fine. That's fine. So some folks believe that the staircases aren't stairs at all, but they're like a pulpit for a preacher holding some sort of dark intended gathering out in the middle of nowhere in a forest.
So he or she would climb up this set of stairs and stand atop of it like some Aztec pyramid,
Yeah.
and
We don't have to bring
Preach.
the Aztecs into this, but yeah.
well, they're not gonna sponsor us either.
I don't want to get hate mail from ghost Aztecs.
Yeah.
But yeah,
That is
Bill,
certainly-
like somebody's climbing up the stairs and they're giving a little sermon in the middle of nowhere, maybe sacrificing something, who knows?
All right,
So that's
so
one
here
of
we
the
have
other theories.
Yeah, so here we have it again, folks. If you know anything about any of this, I want you to contact me. This is really
Yeah.
opening up a can of worms here, Kev.
No, it's very
But
weird stuff. And like, again, we got a few letters, not one, but a few letters in. And they're like, check into the search and rescue rumors of finding these stairs out in the middle of the forest. And like, sure enough, I go and check it, Bill, and it's all over the place.
wow.
I'm like, what the heck?
So
Like, I
here's
never
my
heard
thought.
anything of this.
Yeah, here's my thought now, Kev. There is a distinct possibility that these stairs represent something in some sort of cultic activity.
Could be.
They have a meaning that we're not thinking about. For instance, you remember the Zeppelin album "Stairway to Heaven"?
Yeah.
Now, I don't know if they had any cultic background. Well, we know at least one of the members was interested in some weird stuff.
But they were a great band.
Yeah, but a lot of bands were into weird stuff, Kevin. If they weren't into it directly, they were trying to appear like they were to entice that rock and roll rebellious nature that they were promoting. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
They may not have been into anything at all, but the T-shirts and the album covers and this and that were indicative of them wanting you to believe there was something mysterious and weird, ultra weird about, their getting together and the music they played,
But I still like me some Led Zeppelin music.
Yeah, Hey, listen, I remember seeing Mick Jagger and the Stones playing a private party. John Lennon was there with Yoko and some other people, very select group of people. And Jagger had ripped his shirt off, and under his shirt he had a gigantic, I guess it was painted on, tattoo of Satan that took
nice.
up the entire front body from his neck to his waist.
Very nice.
Yeah, so he was trying to make a statement. It didn't accidentally get put there,
Yeah. Yeah. So let's talk about one of these accounts. So we have an account here, Bill, that somebody posted where they were visiting their relatives in Lillesand, which is in southern Norway. And they went hiking. They say nothing big, just a walk and a picnic in some woods. With us were my niece and nephew, who are both quite young, so I joined them in hide and seek while the proper grown-ups had coffee. Me and my nephew were first to hide, but we split up and ran alone quite a ways into a thicket of woods, and I found a staircase. Nothing remarkable, riddled with moss and made from what looked like really old concrete and large pebbles of rocks in it. It didn't really seem out of place at the time, but thinking back, Anyway, I decided it was fit for a hiding place. But after only a few seconds of squatting behind it, I got up and stepped back. I couldn't shake the feeling that I really shouldn't be anywhere near it. I suddenly had this feeling of being severely unwelcome, and that I should get as far away from it as possible. So I ran to my family and didn't even look back at it. Thinking about it now, it still gives me the same sort of, I know, wrong feeling.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I understand wrong feelings, and they're to be respected.
Yeah, I mean, whether you think you see a Bigfoot and, you're not sure, but you have this feeling in the back of your mind, like, get the heck out of here, the hair standing up on the back of your neck, whatever it is, you got to respect that sense that you have.
Yeah, there's no doubt about it. And I'm hopeful that some people will come through with some concrete data as to the meaning of erecting stairs in the woods. There's got to be something to this that we're not aware of as of yet.
We have an interesting story of some stairs, Bill, that I'm going to share with you in New Hampshire. So they're called Madam Sherry stairs. So these are different stairs. But in Chesterfield, New Hampshire, a set of stairs in the woods has earned a legendary reputation. Although not really a mystery, the staircase rouses a lot of curiosity, and there is a story behind it. So these stairs, Bill, during the 1920s, a Parisian music hall singer named Madame Antoinette Sherry built a castle, quote-unquote castle, in the woods of Chesterfield, New Hampshire, to serve as a summer retreat. Although it really didn't, have the dimensions of a real castle, it was more like a French chateau with a stunning stone staircase complete with Roman arches that led to the second floor. And she had lavish parties, and then there's rumors around there that, maybe she really was a bit of a madame. And it was like a house of ill repute. But she fell into poverty and abandoned the chateau. And then in 1962, the castle burned down, and today only the stairs remain. So if you're hiking around up in New Hampshire, you may see these stairs. I'm going to be looking for them, Bill. I'm going to figure out exactly where they are and maybe take some pictures of them and put them on the website, BigfootTerrorInTheWoods.com, when I'm up there this summer.
Well, that's pretty creepy.
Yeah, pretty creepy.
Excuse me. I wonder, if you happen to get over there, I wonder if there's anything left of the chateau besides that.
They just say that, you may see an arch and the stairways and a little bit of the rubble of the foundation. And there's some pictures online. I'll post them on our website. They're pretty cool. It looks like a Roman ruin. Like they have these arches that look a little bit like the old aqueducts in Rome. So the Madame had some creative vision when she built this place, apparently.
Isn't it amazing how so many people just fall into ruin? They start out with some type of intention, and then either beforehand, during, or after the fact, something gets a hold of them that just destroys them,
Yeah.
It's a weird thing, you know.
Oh, yeah.
And this Madame Cherie sounds like she met a similar fate, you know.
Oh, yeah.
You know, she had to have a couple of bucks to construct some type of chateau-looking building out there.
Oh, in the middle of
the
the forest, 100%, Bill.
Yeah, you had to have a few buckaroos.
Absolutely.
And
maybe a Rougarou came along and said, "Hey, French lady,
yeah,
have you met the Rougarou?"
Yeah, comment allez-vous? Mi nombre is Rougarou. Comment t'appelles-tu? All right, well, it's possible, you know.
So I promised you some other oddities tonight, and I think I delivered with the Stairway to Nowhere.
Boy, that stuff is right out of bizarro cartoons.
I know. I know, 100%. So what do you have, Bill? What kind of account you have tonight?
Well, I come well loaded and prepared tonight, and this is just another one, as you're going to hear, that is really out of the box, showing us once again that Bigfoot is not afraid to come on your property. And so let me dig into this. This following visual as well as evidentiary account was told to me by Tom Baxter, who at the time of this event was 17 years old. This is what Thomas had to share with me. In 1971, I was living in a house in Tennessee, just northwest of Livingston, near the southeastern fork of Dale Hollow Lake. Obviously, at the time, I was a young man living in my parents' house, and I had two siblings, my younger brother Wade, who was 6, and my older sister Tamara, who was 20. The house was actually a third-generation dwelling within our family, and my grandmother was still living there with us. Her husband, my grandfather, had passed away years earlier. This house was situated in a fairly rural setting, with a long backyard buffered by woods, being about 1,000 yards or so from the lake itself. The house was an old 2-story farmhouse with 3 bedrooms on the second floor and 2 on the first, one being the master and the other a smaller bedroom which Wade slept in. I should mention that in all the years we had lived in and visited this house, there had not been a single incident worthy of talking about in regards to it being unsafe to be in or around this property in any way, shape, or form. It was the fall of that year. My father had just changed out all of the window screens, replacing them with the glass storm windows for the winter months. These were the old insert-style windows, which, when they were placed into the opening, several wing nut type of fixtures were turned over the edges to hold them in place securely. I'll also mention that these so-called wing nuts were so gummed up with paint from the many years that we actually had to use pliers to twist them into position. My father, who was a fairly stout man, to say the least, could not move them with his bare fingers. I slept upstairs at the time, and it was during one night that I was awakened by what sounded like Wade crying. I also heard a commotion going on downstairs, and so I ran down to see what the matter was. And there was Wade and Grandma. Now, let me see this, Kev. I got something messed up here.
Hang in there. Find your place.
Oh, I know what I did here. I got this reversed. All right, so let's just go back a step. I slept upstairs at the time, and it was during one night that I was awakened by what sounded like Wade crying. I also heard a commotion going on downstairs, and so I ran down the stairs to see what the matter was. Wade was crying and saying something about a man touching the glass and looking in the window at him. He had a nightlight in his room because he was still young and afraid of the dark, and all of us were making faces at each other as though nothing really had happened, thinking that Wade had fabricated or dreamt up the whole thing. Well, my dad went outside, and I accompanied him, and finding nothing remarkable, that was that, or so we thought. About a week later, under basically the same circumstances, I was awakened again, this time by a loud scream, and I flew downstairs, almost breaking my neck in the process. Wade was frantic, this time saying that some monster had reached into his room and touched him in his bed. My dad and I immediately ran into the room, and feeling the cold air, we saw that the storm window had been removed, which was directly next to Wade's bed. My dad took one look at me, and we ran to get his shotgun, running out the door into the night. It was pitch black, and as we rounded the corner of the house, the storm window had fallen out. As we looked at it closer, it hadn't fallen out, but rather it was leaning against the house, as though you or I would place it down having removed it. As I've already told you, there were 4 of these gummed-up wingnuts on each window, and we had just removed and replaced them using pliers. There was no way this had fallen out and miraculously landed safely leaning against the house. We looked around a little as my father shouted to my mother to call the police. Sometime later, an officer showed up, and having done the usual walk-around, asked my parents if they had noticed any of the neighbors acting oddly, to which they said emphatically, no. The only thing that we had noticed was that the grass was tamped down, but we had just been out there working on the windows with the stepladder and the like, so to us, this was meaningless. The officer said the usual things like, call if anything else happens, and he left. Well, as it turns out, something else would happen, and it was only 2 days later. Wade came home from school that day not feeling well, going to bed early. My grandmother had stayed with him while we went into town to get some groceries. We had been gone for the better part of an hour, and as we were returning, it was already dark and had been for about 45 minutes. As we rounded the last turn to approach the house, we could see the flashing lights of not 1 but 2 squad cars in the yard, and knew immediately that something had transpired while we were absent. As we entered the house, Grandma was hugging Wade with the policeman sitting on the couch. This, of course, was way before cell phones, so we had no idea what had happened. That night it happened to be raining quite hard while we were away, and upon returning home, the dirt driveway was already muddy and puddling here and there. The officer said that the young boy said a monster was pressing its face against his window. Terrified, Wade had run out of the room to his grandmother, and it was she who called the police. These officers were both well aware of what had happened just the other day, and in fact, one of them was the very same officer from the other night. They had actually just arrived only minutes before we had, and we stepped outside as a group, being only the men, myself included. As we walked around by the window, it appeared to have smudges and what was drool like that of a dog smeared over a fair amount of the middle of the pane. Although it was raining out, the rain had not made contact with the window whatsoever. But the ground was wet and had been for several hours at the very least. As the one officer was shining his light on the ground, there they were, several large and fairly well-formed bare footprints, like an enormous human had made them with no shoes on. There were no garden beds next to the house, only grass with some shrubs placed here and there along the edges of the foundation. These prints were clear and distinct and had been created with some heavy downward force into the ground. Now looking at our own prints, all we had done was flatten the wet grass, and yet whatever had made these sunk into the grass and ground about 2 inches. The police were exchanging glances and saying very little, which to me was a bit mysterious at the time, but I did take note of it. One cop actually rode into the yard with his lights on while shining his spotlight all around the area as best as he could. Eventually, we all went back into the house. By that time, Wade had calmed down a bit as an officer cautiously began to interview him while trying not to upset him. He asked him what he saw. Wade put his fingers into his mouth, stretching his mouth open wide and exposing his teeth as wide as he could, like a screaming chimp would appear. And I tried to refrain myself from laughing at him. The officer then said, "And what happened next?" Wade told him the monster pressed his ugly face against the window, staring at him with big white eyes and teeth, and he ran out of the room. The officer said that he and his partner would have to go look around and stop back in before leaving, which they did. They saw nothing, but were in no way saying that nothing happened, and we didn't know what they said amongst themselves when they were out of our company. At 9:45, they were gone. Wade fell asleep on my grandma's lap, and my dad was deeply troubled by all these occurrences. Next to the house and conveniently facing the side which Wade slept on was a large barn that my grandpa used to repair automobiles. It actually was built with a hayloft and an operating door and hoist. Grandpa used the hoist to pull engines and lift heavy objects out of his pickup truck's bed. In the morning when I awoke, the barn door was open, and I saw my father looking out of the hayloft door like he was trying to figure something out, so I went outside. The rain from the day before had stopped, and I asked my dad what he was doing, and he said to me, "Son, whatever is coming to our house and scaring your brother is going to meet its end with my shotgun's lead. I don't care if it takes me an hour, a day, or a month, but I'm going to get that bastard for sure. Whoever or whatever it may be." I quickly made my way up into the loft as my father explained to me his plan. The barn sat in the dark with no exterior lighting on it or that shone on it during the night. The loft door, which was about 12 feet from the ground, faced directly at Wade's window. My dad said that each night the monster had showed up, it was well before midnight, while mostly everyone was still awake, with the exception of Wade and Grandma. His plan was to get up in the loft at sunset each day, for as long as it took, until he took this thing down. I told him I would stay with him, but he refused, saying that a man needed to remain in the house to protect the others. And so each night I sat with a bat and my .410 shotgun parked by the door, just after Wade had gone to sleep. Wade was now sleeping upstairs, and my dad had ingeniously made a kind of mock-up Wade as though he was still sleeping in his bedroom. 3 days later, at 8:10 exactly, I heard both barrels of my dad's shotgun go off and the pellets hitting the side of the house. I guarded the front door until moments later when I heard my father's footsteps on the stairs, and he opened the door. His eyes were as wide as saucers. And he simply said, "I got him." My mother said, "Honey, who did you get?" And he said, "The monster." He walked right over to his liquor cabinet and poured about 4 shots into a glass and sat down. My mother went by his side to comfort him, saying nothing as he finally broke his silence and began to tell us what happened. He said he saw a large shadow moving across the yard while looking through the hayloft door that was cracked open about 4 inches. When finally it had reached a point where it was by the corner of the house, which was, by the way, painted white. It was then that he caught full view of the immensity of this thing's silhouette, and he realized that this was no man. It was, as Wade had said, a monster of epic proportions. He said it had approached Wade's window, with the glow of his nightlight illuminating it, and was rocking back and forth in front of the window, ducking its head down to look inside. My dad said that when it was standing before it had ducked down, it was at least 2 feet higher than the window frame, which was about 9 feet tall or thereabouts. And when it was in front of the window, its body consumed both the window and the side-by-side shutters as well. My dad said that before it had a chance to move, he put a round of buck square in its back and hit it with the second in the legs as it turned to run. But it wasn't enough to stop it. Rather, he said, this thing took off like a bat out of hell into the darkness. The next morning, my father had called the cops to report what had happened during the night. We went outside to greet the officers and stood along the house where Dad had blasted this thing. Very few of the pellets had missed their mark, with the evidence being just a couple in and next to the shutters which flanked the windows. The glass was untouched, and some of the shingles were broken on the lower wall. The concrete was also chipped where my dad had said he fired at its legs trying to take it down. He described it as being darkly colored and standing on 2 legs. He said it was 4 to 5 feet wide at the back and 10 feet tall with extremely long arms. Even after being shot twice, it was able to run like a deer into the darkness, not making as much as a sound. Not a scream, not a yelp, nothing. The police were dumbfounded, and as for me, I was in a daze just listening to it. My dad was a real no-nonsense type of man. Even in his 60s, he was still yes, sir, and no, ma'am, with everyone. A deal was a deal, and a handshake sealed it. There was no way that he didn't see what he saw and shoot it just the way he said he did. We never had another issue with the monster, Peeping Tom, after that. And I had taken over that bedroom from my little brother, Wade. Having read several of your books, Bill, I thought you might find this a little more than interesting. And so I contacted you. What do you think of that, Kev?
Super cool.
Absolutely nuts.
Yeah. Pretty wild. And by the way, you got to shoot this thing with more than buckshot. We're learning that over and over again.
Apparently, we even had that one dude who was honest enough to say that he didn't think his rifle would have been enough to take it down.
Oh, yeah, and he had to it was like a single shot rifle.
Yeah, a bolt action. Yeah.
I get that. I mean, I want the AR-15 with the 40 round 5.56 clip.
Yeah. Just keep cracking them, man.
I mean, you saw the video of me shooting mine, Bill. It's like bing, bing, bing every time it hits a steel disc
Yeah.
downrange.
Yeah. Yeah, well, you got to have, that's why I say, you always carry more gun than you think you're going to need.
No doubt about it, man. I mean, the shotgun, I get it. Like, if that's what I had, that's what I'd use.
Yeah.
When the hairy man shows up there. But really cool account, Bill. Now, I didn't catch it. I don't know if you said it in the beginning, but where did that take place?
Tennessee.
Tennessee, okay.
Northwest of Livingston, near the southeastern fork of Dale Hollow Lake, if any of you listeners know where that is.
Okay.
And what was interesting also was the evidential proof that the shot had, for the most part, hit its mark with both barrels.
Yeah.
There was a little bit of smattering on the concrete chipping and a couple of shingles, but this thing was looking in the window and none of the glass got broken.
No.
Only a couple of shingles. So everything had pretty much hit this thing in the back.
That's a miracle in itself, right? Shooting that shotgun and not breaking any glass. So that creature must have absorbed a bunch of lead.
Right, and been covering the glass at the time.
Yeah.
And I mean, this is the kind of freaky stuff. Many, many, many times, people have said something was looking in the window, and it was horrific.
We were talking about it last week, Bill, the dog man looking in the window.
Yep, they're interested. I have an account. I know we get to all of them eventually. Of a woman who was rounding a corner in her car. There was a big field, never mowed, of course, just an abandoned old wheat field. Yeah. And out in this field was also an abandoned house trailer. Nobody lived there. She comes around the corner. Now, I don't know what the height of a house trailer is, Kev. What would you estimate? 8 foot?
No. From the ground, probably, I was going to say 9-10 foot.
Yeah,
right, because they're a few feet off the ground to get to the floor.
Right, because they always park them and jack them up and put them on
and they got the
cinder
axles
blocks, right?
under them, and then they jack them up to level them.
Well, this sucker, when she rounded the corner, broad daylight sighting, had its hand flat on the roof and was leaning down with its neck, looking in the window of this abandoned trailer.
Yeah, that's a monster. Like Wade called it, a monster.
A monster.
Yeah.
I mean, come on, man. You can't tell me that you're going to run into something like this and think you're Superman and gonna want to do something. Man, I'm telling you, man.
Shock when you see this thing. Yeah, let's face it. You're going to be in shock. You're like, what the heck is that?
That's the whole thing, man. Some guys have even said they couldn't pull. They couldn't pull the trigger.
Yeah.
Either confusion.
They think of it as intelligent life, and it's easy to talk about shooting something, but when you're talking about taking it off of the face of the earth with your shot,
you may think twice about that.
Absolutely.
And then if you do shoot it and it drops, which there are accounts of these things happening, some people having shot it and killed it decide, I better get out of here or I may be up on charges.
Oh, yeah.
And that's the way things happen. You don't mean it. Sometimes a murder happens that way.
Yeah. I talk with you, Bill, about always carrying more gun than you think you're going to need, but it's really primarily designed at something trying to take your life.
Correct.
Defending yourself.
Yeah, self-defense.
Yeah.
And when you're talking about a grizzly attacking you, a mountain lion, a Bigfoot, that is self-defense.
Oh, yeah.
Man alive. Or a moose, right?
Sure.
A moose.
They seem so gentle, but they say they're super dangerous. I've seen them, too, in the wild.
Yeah, I think it was Les Straub that said his most dangerous encounter he ever had was a moose a bull moose coming on him.
Or the moose with the calves. That's what they say. You know, just like the bears. When mama bear's looking after the little bears, you don't want anything to do with them.
Yeah, they'll kill you, man.
Yeah.
They'll kill you.
Yeah.
So there you have it. That is one crazy sighting.
That's a great account, Bill. Great account from Tennessee. Go Vols.
Yeah. Yeah, and they're that following the freaking stairs to nowhere. That was freaking really bizarre, man. Really bizarre. Well, so that's it, folks. Kev, what do we got in our listener mail
got some good
segment?
Listener mail this week. So the first letter comes from Dino from Wisconsin.
Okay.
You remember Dino from the Flintstones?
You remember Dino the dinosaur from Sinclair gas stations?
Oh, yeah. The same Dino from the Flintstones, right? He was a dinosaur.
Yeah, I don't know
that
who ripped
it's
who
the
off.
same, but I'm saying it's the same.
Yeah, but Sinclair used to have a green brontosaurus on their gas station signs.
Yeah.
And I remember going to the World's Fair in Queens, New York, in like 1964, I think.
Yeah, you went without me because I wasn't around.
Yeah, you weren't there. You weren't there. But they had a machine there. And in the machine, you could put whatever it was, a quarter or 50 cents. And you waited, and it formed a green plastic Dino the dinosaur. Yeah, true story.
Yeah, it's wild, yeah.
And you had to wait a few minutes because it was hot plastic, and then it came out, and you waited for it to cool down. And then I guess it said, okay, you can take it now or something like that. And I walked away with this dinosaur. And I thought it was the coolest thing, this little 6-inch, 7-inch tall green brontosaurus.
Pretty cool. Yeah, 100%. That's awesome. Well, anyway, Dino, not Dino from the Sinclair advertising campaign or Dino from the Flintstones. We're talking about Dino from Wisconsin. And he writes in with the subject of big cats.
Wow.
And he says, hello, WJ and KJ. First off, congrats on your new book, WJ. It sounds like quite a divergence from the tasty, furry feast I'm used to consuming on your robust podcast. And he says, also, congrats on your 100th podcast achievements. Here's to 100 more. Well, thank you, Dino. And he says, those big cat stories are neat. I remember when I was driving Putch, rhymes with Dutch, back from a Spirit Lake family union because he got all crippled up in a fossil hole. While we were driving across Wisconsin, enjoying a cold cup of peat moss stew and Putch's mom's stick snacks, we passed a Chevy Nova, and two people in the back seat of it were trying to hold down what looked like a tiger-sized cat, though it looked like it was all black. The driver saw that I saw them and greatly reduced his speed, so we blew by him. Putch suggested that we take the next exit and wait for them, as Putch was sure they got spooked and wanted to get off the highway. We sped way ahead of them, and just as we lost sight of them in the rearview mirror, an exit appeared, and we took it, pulling onto the shoulder by some tall grass to conceal the vehicle. Sure enough, a few minutes later, the Nova slowly drove past us, up to a stop sign, and we saw the profile of a big cat head in the back seat. I pulled out from our spot and used the speed to get up behind them. Putch quickly wrote down the license plate number, and as soon as they saw us behind them, they quickly turned right and sped off with speed. I turned after them, and they suddenly stopped quickly, about 500 feet ahead of us. The back door opened, and we saw the cat get pushed out. The door slammed shut, and they tore off. Putch and I weren't quite sure what to do when the cat tore off into the nearby brush. We decided not to follow either and called the local sheriff. who wasn't in, so I left a detailed message about our strange encounter and contact info on a message machine, and we continued our trip, both a little shaken. A few weeks later, I heard that an exotic animal trafficking ring was busted in Wisconsin, somewhat near where we had our encounter, and can't help but think that not only did we have something to do with that, but a lot of big cat sightings could have been explained by something like this. As for the Bigfoot, does anyone ever check the trees up top? It's an ape, right? So maybe it's not so much disappearing, but quickly and silently climbing up to trees to hide in the canopy. What do you think, Bill?
Yeah, there's no doubt. I mean, I have at least 2, if not more, encounters of people. You remember the story we did, Kev, where the ravens gather?
Oh, yeah.
Where the creature was sighted by that hunter. Initially, the hunter was wondering why all the ravens were cawing up ahead of him. And when he got there, the Bigfoot was up in the tree ripping off the nest.
Yep. Taking the eggs, right? We've had several accounts where they're taking eggs.
Chicks, eggs, whatever's there, it's food.
There, yeah.
That's easy, man. You just go up there, oh, there's a nest. Let me see what's in there.
But it's pretty interesting here with Dino. It's another, we talked about it back in the UK cats podcast, the big cats. I mean, a lot of it's pretty easy to explain. It's people messing with these cats as pets and trafficking them and stuff like that where they shouldn't be. And then they get in trouble or, they start to feel the heat on them, so to speak. And then they let them loose into the wild. It's crazy.
And can you imagine if, your only mode of transportation is this Nova?
And you're Nova with a Puma.
Yeah, you're trying to manhandle a cat in the back seat?
Yeah, no. I'm thinking, so maybe Bill, I know you haven't seen it, but I'm thinking of Talladega Nights where the father's teaching Will Ferrell how to drive the NASCAR car, and he locks him in the car with a cougar. He says, "You better drive faster. That cat's going to kill you."
Oh, that's freaking nuts.
Awesome stuff.
Well, thanks, Dino.
Yeah, good stuff, Dino. Thanks for sharing the account, too. It's spectacular that, folks are out there in the real world and coming across this stuff. So next one comes in from Tanya. And Tanya writes, "Hi, guys. My name is Tanya. And Tanya's from Arkansas. And she's a digital illustrator of children's books, which is super cool, Tanya. She says, I love listening to your podcast while I'm working on illustration projects. Perhaps I should write and illustrate a Bigfoot story for kids. Hey, Tanya, I think that's a great idea. Give me a call. I got some ideas on that, too. Anyway, I digress. In the video you shared for episode 92 from the field camera, I did see the movement center screen to the right of that tree. If you zoom in, you'll be able to see what appears to be the head of an elk peering out. The thing that's unclear to me is why the video goes a bit dark when there's movement inside the tree to the right. It clearly looks as if something is sitting in the lower branches of the tree and then stands and looks in the direction of the elk. However, I'm not understanding why it goes dark the minute it moves. While I am familiar with various digital drawing programs from Photoshop to Procreate and how to alter art and photos in those programs, I have neither knowledge of video altering or field cameras. That being said, I'm in no way disputing the authenticity of the video, because my family and I have witnessed plenty of things that many people would have dismissed. I never doubt the experiences of others. The difference in lighting just caught my eye. Perhaps the video only records when there is movement, and a great deal of time had passed before the figure in the tree had moved. Again, I love the podcast. Keep doing what you're doing, as it is one of the highlights of my day. Blessings to you both, Tanya. And Tanya,
Well,
that
Kev,
makes sense to me. I mean, I think these cameras are sleeping until they see movement. So that could be it right there.
I have another explanation, though, Kev, why it went dark.
Okay.
I think that's when the guy taking the pictures took his last swig of Jack Daniels. He almost fell over, and then he regained his footing.
Could be.
Man. Yeah, well, that's interesting. You know, I mean, it's neat, and Tanya and everybody else. That's why we put these things out there. We're not really. Well, I'm not. I don't particularly take a side on anything, other than I believe that Bigfoot is real.
Sure.
But we put all of these things out there, if we have anything, so that you could see it and make some kind of judgment call or assessment for yourself. That's what it's all about, right?
100%.
I was having a conversation with somebody this morning about tree structures. And the only thing we can agree upon is that we have about a half a dozen ideas as to what they may be, but no Bigfoot's going to come up to us and tell us what they actually are. You know, we don't know. Are they directional? Are they territorial? Are they a marker of something else? Are they freaking mysterious artwork being created by primates? You know, who knows what they are, you know?
Yeah, no doubt about it.
You know. So, but we appreciate Tanya writing in. Definitely excellent, Tanya.
Cool, man. Well, 2 more letters, Bill. So this one comes in from Brian in the great state of North Carolina.
Mm-hmm.
And the subject is the 33rd state.
All right.
What do you think that is, Bill?
Oh, you're asking me what the 33rd state is?
Yep.
I have no idea.
Well, if
you want me to take a guess?
If he's writing in, and let's just say he might be picking on you a little. What state
it's Oregon.
Do you think it is? Which
it's
one?
Oregon.
Oregon. So
The
Brian
name of
in
the
NC
state.
says, why not have fun pronouncing the name of our 33rd state? Oregon. Lean in heavy with the middle with different vowels. Sorry. He says, or God, or Egon, or I-God, or Ru-God. And sometimes, or E-God.
Yeah.
The home run king of irking Oregonians would be how we pronounce it in North Carolina. Oregon.
See, Kev, this is another example of what happens to you when you eat tilapia every day.
Oregon. I like Oregon from North Carolina. O-R-G-U-N, Brian writes it.
All right.
Hey, why not? Oregon.
How about organ? As in your liver.
All right, our last letter, Bill, comes in from Mitzi. And I forget where Mitzi's from, but she says, hello, KJ and WJ. Just wanted to stop by and say that I adore your show. Okay, Mitzi doesn't like it. She adores it. This could be the first person, Bill, by the way, that adores our show.
Well, it might be, you know.
I mean, that just came out and said that. But Mitzi writes, once I heard you on Wes's show, Sasquatch Chronicles, of course, I started reading your books and was immediately hooked. Being Latina, we grew up very open to anything paranormal. There is always a paranormal segment on the Spanish news. So to me, unusual creatures, UFOs, etc., are considered normal. And she writes, haha. I am an outdoor guide in the state of Iowa. This is my first season, and I always keep my eyes out for anything unusual. I've seen what might have been stick structures, and oh man, did I get a creepy vibe. If you are ever in Iowa, just look for the house with the metal Sasquatch cutout in the front. KJ, keep those cryptids in the news segments coming. They are awesome. Cheers, Mitzi.
Yeah, and Mitzi, you know, I've said this in the past. My wife is Spanish, and I've said on this podcast that there's been many times we were watching Spanish television, and they don't think twice about putting something on there relative to the unusual, the odd, the paranormal, just as you say.
Yeah.
It could be a UFO, it could be a chupacabra, a phantom, a Bigfoot. They just play it and let you see it. And that's exactly what we do. We talk about it, we show it to you, and then we leave it with you to comment on or just to listen and absorb it for yourself.
Yeah, you mention that all the time, Bill.
Yeah.
Just different than our typical news. So good stuff, Bill. Great podcast. And folks out there, thank you so much. I was just looking last night. We have so many new 5-star reviews. Please leave us those 5-star reviews. It's really the only way we have of attracting new listeners to the podcast. And by getting new listeners, we can stay on a regular schedule and continue to improve the quality of the podcast. So thank you so much for those 5-star reviews.
Awesome. And remember, folks, go out and buy a book. You got volumes 1 through 8, Amazon, paperback and ebook, and then you have 1 through 8 at Audible, and my new book, How to Make Money, God's Universal Laws for Wealth and Prosperity. And by the way, if you find yourself walking in the Norwegian woods, sitting down for a cup of coffee, and hiding behind a set of stairs to nowhere, you best remember one thing, my friend. Always carry more gun than you think you're gonna need. Sleep tight.